Death of a Nation. Chapter 6. Zola. The back of Zola's hand banged for the fifth time against the mysterious woman's peach-colored armor. Her hand hummed in pain as she tried and failed to keep it steady. The woman's legs stretched into long, wide strides as she darted across the dirt road with Zola at her hip. "What is going on?" Zola finally mustered up enough breath to say from her cradle position. The woman either did not hear her or intentionally ignored Zola. The ground beneath them became more moist and rich. They crossed over spots of land with tiny plots of grass scattered over a mostly bare area. Before Zola could get the thought out, the smells hit her. Perfume, meats and fruits, flowers and spices that made her nostrils flare. They were close to the market. Why was the woman taking her there? "What are we doing here?" Zola asked. The woman dropped Zola next to a vendor's stall that stood on the outskirts of the market. A foul smell invaded Zola's senses as she hit the ground. "Wait here," the woman commanded without waiting to see if Zola would listen, and walked deeper into the market. The foul smell became more pungent as Zola gathered her composure to figure out what was she going to do. "You're trying to steal from me, thief!" A voice raged from behind her. Zola looked up at the face of an extremely thin, dark-skinned woman with crow's feet around her eyes and a head wrap covering her skull stared daggers down at her. "No, this woman dropped me here and I can't move that well," Zola attempted to explain, but the woman shook her head viciously, refusing to hear anything she had to say. The woman's bony hand disappeared into the back of the booth and pulled out a large mallet. Zola scrambled out of the woman's reach. The woman swung the wooden mallet back and forth, missing Zola by a mile each time. With every gust of wind she created, a wave of foulness followed it. Pebbles bit into Zola's arms and hands as she dodged the woman's wild attacks. The woman shouted violently with promises of harming Zola for stealing from a poor old woman. How much easier it would have been if she could just get up and run away. Zola silently cursed her legs. A sharp pain bit at the base of her palm, causing Zola's elbow to plummet into the ground. Zola looked down and a stone had lodged itself into her skin. Blood immediately began to pool around the wounded area. The woman laughed hysterically. "Dead girl." She raised the mallet over her head and brought it crashing down with a power Zola couldn't believe the frail woman possessed. Zola flinched, but the attack never came. The wooden mallet hit the ground. Zola looked up and screamed. The frail old lady stood in front of her, hands still in the air as if she was holding on to the mallet and eyes bugged out. In the middle of her chest was a gaping hole, raw and red. Protruding out of it was a spiked tail as black as coal. The woman fell into the dirt right beside Zola, her unblinking eyes fixed on Zola's face. The soup Zola managed to keep down finally came up and splattered across the woman's body. Two creatures with faces like featherless birds and bodies of a small child stood in place where the woman was. Their cold black tails, longer than their entire bodies, waved side to side behind them. Their beady yellow eyes darted in every direction before stopping on Zola. Then the terrible stench she had been smelling hit her. Zola slowly dragged her other hand across the dirt in hopes that it would give her enough leverage to get up. She had only one chance, and she had to make it count. The creatures opened their beaked mouths and let out a squawk that sent chills down Zola's flesh. Zola pressed her hand into the dirt and lifted herself up. Her tiny legs quivered viciously as she took quick and short steps in the other direction. She could hear the stomps of the creatures closely behind her. Zola tore through the market, searching for her sister or the strange woman. She slammed into several stalls, nearly falling each time. The vendors cursed her. Some even attempted to assault her, until they saw the creatures, turning their passionately lit faces a ghostly pale. Cries of terror or pain followed soon after. Zola had no time to see if they were okay. She just kept running. Every stall looked the same, as if she was going in circles. She couldn't find any signs of Zora or the woman. Her legs began to give out. She whipped around another empty stall and fell face first into the ground. The base of her ankle hummed in pain. An overcast blocked out the sun. Zola braced herself for the creatures to attack. "Zola!" A familiar voice spoke. Zola looked up and nearly screamed in joy. "Mama! I'm so glad to see you. We have to go. There are monsters chasing after me. I know it sounds crazy, but please just listen to me." Zola extended her hand out. Mama stared blankly at her. "Mama, can you help me up?" Zola asked. Mama shook her head. Zola frowned and attempted to push herself off the ground, but Mama pushed her back. "Mama!" Zola's voice broke. "You're cursed," Mama muttered. Something cold and sinister slid past Mama's eyes, making Zola jerk her arm back. Mama pointed to the rest of the market. Zola hadn't realized the creature stopped chasing her and started terrorizing the people. Stalls were flipped over on their sides. Some were even broken in half. Vendors lay dead, with holes the size of baseballs in various areas on their bodies. Zola looked back at her mama. "It wasn't me. I promise," she squeaked. "All of you must die. It is the only way to make it right." "All of who?" Zola thought. Mama charged at her, but Zola hopped up. "Mama, stop! You are cursed," Mama repeated louder and louder. Zola backed away from her. "She is cursed. Get her." Mama pointed in Zola's direction. The remaining crowd turned their attention towards Zola. Zola lifted her palms. "I'm not cursed." The crowd circled around her. Zola could smell the ill intent surrounding them like a thick smog. "Please, I am not cursed," Zola cried. "Get away from her," she heard a voice behind the crowd yell. "She's cursed too," Mama yelled. The crowd parted just enough that Zola was able to see the person who tried to defend her, standing with her fist balled, blood plastered across her clothes, and a courageousness that no one could imitate, was Zora. "Cursed! Manyara showed me in the smoke. Both of you are cursed. You brought this on our family and the people of this land," Mama shouted like a mad person, but no one else seemed to think she was mad. Two older girls seized Zola. "Let me go!" Zola howled. She squirmed, but they didn't budge. The crowd overwhelmed Zora's futile defenses and brought her next to Zola. "How are you cursed?" Zola asked. Zora avoided Zola's gaze. "Let us go. Our mama is crazy. She doesn't know what she's talking about." A near-bursting screech roared. "See? They are commanding those demons. We have to kill them," Mama exclaimed. The crowd rumbled in agreement. Zola's legs gave out. The girls struggled to keep her up. Their nails bit into Zola's shoulders. "They're coming for us. Hurry up and end them," a voice shouted from the crowd. The two monsters ran on all fours towards the crowd like hungry panthers. Before they could reach anyone, the woman in the peach-colored armor bolted from behind a stall and impaled one of the creatures on a long staff, turning the creature into dust. A peach glare sparked from the attack, blinding everyone except Zola. The girls let go of Zola and covered their faces. She fell to her knees. "I got you, sissy." Zora pulled her up. Zola looked up and Zora's eyes had shifted from their usual brown to a glowing copper red. "Zora?" Zola started. "Later." Zora stopped her and moved towards the woman who was fighting the other creature. She and the creature moved at an impossible speed. They clashed and tumbled. The woman's spear spun around, creating a circular peach blur. The creature's tail zipped and struck like the head of a viper, and it all seemed magical, until the creature cried out a sound so terrible and disturbing it made Zola want to crawl into a hole. Blood, or what Zola thought looked like blood, and dust scattered everywhere. When all movement settled, Zola could see the woman in a different light than she had before. The woman's curvy features were nestled tightly inside a peach cowhide breastplate that covered most of her upper body. From her shins on down to her feet were a similar material that glimmered in the late afternoon sun. A hard substance that Zola couldn't distinguish between a wild cat or some domesticated animal covered the rest of her body. Her long black dreads coiled down her back, swaying side to side like hundreds of vicious pythons. Zola watched in awe as the woman took decisively powerful steps towards her and Zora. "Are you okay, Zola?" the woman asked. Her peach-colored eyes glinted. Zola nodded stupidly. "Zora?" She turned her attention to her sister. "Yes," Zora inclined her head. "Can I ask what is going on?" "Demons!" Mama pointed at them. The crowd recovered from the blinding lights and turned their attention to their small group. "It is time to go. Rotendo is going to meet us at the rendezvous point." The woman ushered the girls closer to her. "I'll take Zola. You run. We'll be right behind you." Without so much as a question, Zora transferred Zola into the woman's hands. "Wait!" Zola called out as the woman slapped Zola's small body against her shoulders. "She's good. I trust her." Zora pressed her hand into Zola's. Zola didn't know Zora to trust anyone, but herself if she had to guess. Where had this relationship come from? And how hadn't she known about it before all of this? "I don't even know your name," Zola mumbled as she tried not to press her lips against the dirty surface of the woman's armor. "It's Lissetti," the woman replied before taking off behind Zora. Zola looked back as they exited the market and escaped the confused and angry crowd led by her own mama. The once flourishing marketplace was a ruin of broken wood and dusty remains. As they neared the end of the area, Zola spotted one stall that seemed to be untouched by the chaos. Diamonds, beaded bracelets, necklaces, and jewelry of all kinds were perfectly placed on its counter. Zola rubbed her eyes as she caught sight of something hidden behind it. "Info!" Zola shouted, hoping to catch Zora's attention. "Zora, it's Info, and he's safe!" She looked over at her sister, who was focused on running as she didn't hear her. When Zola looked back, the boy she thought she saw had disappeared. Zola rubbed her eyes. Maybe she was seeing things.